A long, long time ago, for 4 years, I was a vegetarian. I became an omnivore again when I started a relationship with the man who later became my second husband. Psychologically, I still didn't feel good about eating meat, so I tried to go vegan each year during the big Lent. But every year I failed to sustain till the end of that 40-day period, even though I love animals and I have vegan and vegetarian friends and former clients. So I'm aware that I may have lost some of them after I came out as a carnivore. That's normal. Louis Hose is a celebrity author and podcaster. Here's what he says.
If you want to make different changes and you go 6 months like a ghost and you just focus on your goals, you take action, you never go out, and you really overcome, whether it be financially or physically or whatever it might be, people aren't going to necessarily like that or appreciate it when they see you come back because you're killing off the person they once knew. And they don't like feeling like, oh, you're doing something different. You're used to going out on the weekends. You're used to going out and drinking a beer after work on Fridays, whatever it might be. Let them. When you want to change your vision and change your map and change your mission towards something new, you're going to have to make sacrifices.
People knew me differently too. Then I disappeared, and now, after I went through an inner transformation, I'm coming out and showing up differently. You may or may not accept it, but if you are open-minded and curious to hear my whys and hows, I invite you to keep listening. This is the podcast Il Zebra's Transformations. I am the Il Zebra. The main purpose of this podcast is to continue journaling so that I keep healing. This is not a diary, meaning that my records won't necessarily reflect events in their chronological order, nor do I promise that the details will be accurate. If listening to my processing of traumas helps someone else along the way, I'll take it as having accomplished something for the higher good of all concerned. But now, without further ado, let's start. Just to make sure everyone is on the same page, I'll start with some definitions of some of the diets. Vegetarians exclude meat, poultry, and fish, while vegans exclude all animal products, including dairy, eggs, and honey. A pescatarian diet is a type of vegetarian diet that includes fish and seafood. On the other extreme of vegan diet, there is the carnivore and lion diets. On a carnivore diet, you only eat animal products. This includes meat, fish, seafood, eggs, and some dairy products like butter, heavy cream, and hard cheeses. You must exclude all fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. The lion diet is the most restrictive of all ketogenic diets. It limits food intake to only ruminant meats, salt, and water. Somewhere in between, there's a Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet emphasizes plant-based foods and healthy fats. You eat mostly veggies, fruits, and whole grains. Extra virgin olive oil is the main source of fat, but it is important to understand that the Mediterranean diet supporters don't focus on excluding carbs and being on ketosis. A diet that does focus on ketosis is the ketogenic diet. A true ketogenic diet centers on fat, which supplies as much as up to 90% of daily calories, even though some carnivore experts would argue that plant oils should not be confused with animal fats, so they should not be called fats. A significant difference between ketogenic and carnivore diet is that carnivores strive to exclude all plant foods, while the supporters of the ketogenic diet don't. For them, it is important to stay in ketosis, even if it means eating some plant foods. Just to summarize, the two opposites are the vegan diet and the carnivore diet. The extreme vegans not only won't eat any animal products, they also won't use wool, leather, or silk. The extreme carnivores are on the lion diet, which means they only eat ruminant meat with salt and drink water. The philosophies of the supporters of these two directions differ. Vegan beliefs revolve around avoiding the exploitation and cruelty of animals for any purpose, including food, clothing, and entertainment. Carnivore diet supporters believe that humans are naturally predisposed to a meat-based diet. Therefore, their philosophy essentially supports the oxygen mask principle, namely, put an oxygen mask on yourself first and only then try to help the others. Carnivore diet supporters also disagree with vegans regarding the harm done to animals, in that being a vegan prevents it. Well-versed carnivores can explain how significantly crop-growing agriculture impacts animals, both directly and indirectly. I may need to discuss the ethical and environmental aspects of this topic in another episode, though, because my promise was that in this episode I would continue to respond to my friend Kelly, addressing her comment about her love for bread, talk about why and how I started my carnivore journey, what I eat now, and my suggestions for how to begin if you'd like to try. So first, how and why I started. A short answer to how I started would be gradually, which now I know was the right way to do it. I'll explain why it was right as I develop my answer. The answer to why I decided to go carnivore is because I was looking for solutions to my health issues, and through my independent research I came to an understanding of the concept of the two types of energy production mechanisms that I have talked about in my previous episodes. I wanted to switch to energy production from ketones, instead of continuing to produce energy from glucose, so that my body could cleanse and heal without being deprived of nutrients. I was particularly interested in improving my brain microbiome. Yes, the brain also has its own unique microbiome. And I also wanted to stop any uncontrolled cell division processes in my body, if there were any. I started last fall, and at the beginning I wasn't a true carnivore. It was rather a ketogenic diet with a heavy emphasis on meat. I eliminated potatoes and all grain crops, wheat, oats, and rice, but I still made soups and included some vegetables. I continued eating seafood, eggs, cheese, yogurt, and sour cream. I had cut sugar before, but I still sometimes craved something sweet, so I made a dessert of sour cream and Joko chocolate protein powder, which is sweetened with allulose. Allulose is known not to cause an insulin rise. I know you might find this recipe weird, but as a Latvian I love sour cream with almost everything, so that snack would be like chocolate mousse to me, except healthier, or that's what I thought then. I stopped eating veggies after Thanksgiving of 2024, but I still drank mushroom coffee, cacao, and I still snacked on cheeses, sour cream, and my unique chocolate pudding made from sour cream and Joko protein powder. That's about the time when I bought ketone test strips to make sure I am in ketosis. Therefore, I know that I have been in ketosis at least since the very beginning of 2025. And therefore, for the sake of simplicity, I count that I've been on carnivore diet since January 1st, 2025, even though I started before that. At the beginning, I thought I'd just do it for 3 months following the 90-day carnivore challenge invitations I saw on social media and heard on podcasts appropriately for that time of the year when so many of us try to come up with some New Year resolutions. Previously, I had done one 90-day challenge and felt the benefits of it. That challenge was for posting live videos on Facebook, and as a result, I freed myself of fear of being judged because of how I show up. Where I'm heading with this story is that when I started, I only committed to those 90 days. I never committed to more. However, during those 3 months, my body got adjusted to this new diet and my microbiome changed. If at the beginning I was craving carbs and alcohol, by the end of the set period I no longer did, which made sense to me because I had learned it's rather the bacteria in our gut, not our bodies per se, that make us think we need sugar or carbs. When they're starved to death, it will be easy to go past an ice cream stand or bakery. Don't get me wrong, you will still remember the pleasurable flavor and the dopamine from eating sweets, because it's like an addiction that addicts can learn to manage for the rest of their lives. But I want you to know that you can do it, and your precious body is worth your trying to go for it. Since I also continue to educate myself about the nutrition and the outdated and harmful beliefs that concerns it, I was compelled to continue with the carnivore. Moreover, when you eat a limited number of products, you notice changes in how you feel depending on what you eat. There's one particular observation I want to share with you. Last September, I got COVID for the first time, and I couldn't recover easily. Even though my fever dropped after a week or so, I still had cough. There were nights, months after I tested positive, when I woke up from severe onsets of cough that made it impossible for me to sleep. I thought it was long COVID. However, I didn't cough every night, so I started to think what I had done differently on those days preceding the nights of the severe coughing, and I noticed a correlation. I coughed if I had eaten cheese and sour cream during the day, and I usually didn't cough if I hadn't eaten those products. That's how I discovered that I am sensitive to dairy products. I excluded them from my diet since then, so it's become more restrictive. But as you can conclude from my story, I started excluding products gradually. At the time I started, I didn't know that by doing it gradually, I avoided feeling very sick due to what's known as carnivore flu and severe oxalate dump. I will devote a separate episode to oxalates, but at this time I'll only talk about what can cause carnivore flu. Think of the carnivore diet as a specific ketogenic diet. Remember that at the beginning I said that a true ketogenic diet centers on fat. So if you decide to try carnivore, you'll need to increase your fat intake. I know that it might scare some of you at first, especially if your goal is to lose weight and you've been living with the belief that fat makes you fat. But if you've listened to my last 2 episodes, you'll remember that the body can make energy from glucose or fat, and that protein is mainly used for building and repair. It is not your body's go-to fuel source. I also explained that the increase of glucose level in blood causes insulin levels to go up, and insulin is a growth hormone. Basically, the theory is that you won't grow fat if your insulin levels are low, which they are if you exclude carbs. So do not worry much about gaining fat from consuming fat. Now, your question might be, how much fat is more fat? How much fat do you need to eat? Most often I see the recommended ratio for fat to protein on a carnivore diet as 80% of your calories from fat and 20% from protein during the adaptation period of 90 days. But I've also heard one expert offer a simpler approach. Aim for 1-to-1 ratio by weight, 1 gram of fat for every gram of protein. That's often easier to keep track of without needing to count calories. After the 90-day period, though, the fat proportion should be revised depending on how physically active you are, your gender, your age, and how much fat you have accumulated and want to lose. Yet the lowest fat to protein ratio I've seen recommended is 65 calories from fat. And that's only for those who extensively work out in gyms. For people who do mental job, your brain needs fat. And even though it needs some glucose too, your body will make the necessary amount from protein and fat, so carbs are optional and definitely not recommended. Now, a little bit about why some people may experience flu-like symptoms and diarrhea if they go carnivore, cold turkey. It's because your body is not used to consuming so much fat. Your gut microbiome is changing. Some bacteria that depended on carbs will be starving and dying, and some that are needed for the new type of diet will need to develop to support you. And before it happens, your body collectively with the microbiome will not be able to handle the radical change and try to get rid of everything that you ask them to deal with. If you think you could go higher protein and lower fat at the beginning to avoid diarrhea, I wouldn't do that, because without fiber, you may get constipated, and that's not going to be pleasant. Another thing that will help ensure bowel movements is enough salt intake. You'll need to eat more salt. I start my day with a large beer mug with carbonated water in which I dissolve half a teaspoon of coarse Celtic salt. Other good salts are Redmond real salt, which is unrefined sea salt mined from an ancient seabed in Utah, and Baja Gold, unrefined sea salt rich in trace minerals from the Sea of Cortez. The reason why you need more salt is because you'll lose water when you go carnivore. I think I heard that each gram of carbohydrate attracts 2 grams of fluid, so you need salt to prevent dehydration. The salts that I mentioned also contain other important minerals that your body needs. For example, Redmond real salt contains over 60 natural occurring trace minerals, including calcium, copper, magnesium, potassium, and zinc. It is also known for containing iodine, iron, and other trace minerals like manganese, phosphorus, and sulfur. And no, you don't need to worry about your heart health with increased sodium levels on carnivore diet. It's also an old belief. Your blood pressure may go up initially if you are prone to it, but then your body will self-regulate and you'll be fine. Now, everything that you heard so far was the continuation of my answer to Kelly that I started during the previous episode. Remember, Kelly said she was curious to learn more about the carnivore diet, especially if one can lose weight on it, but she was not sure it would be for her because she loves her bread. But now I'll address the matter regarding my credibility as an advisor. No, I don't have a degree in biology or a certificate in food science, and I'm not a medical doctor, but I have gone through large volumes of information about the benefits of the carnivorous diet. It happened because of my insomnia. There was a period in my life, a long one, that lasted years, when I couldn't sleep without sleeping pills. After I started working toward recovery from the most recent complex trauma that made my insomnia worse, I committed to combating that addiction to pills. So I had to find a less harmful replacement until I can recover completely. I tried various remedies and methods, including meditation. It didn't work for me. My mind was so busy that sleep and relaxation meditations did nothing. I couldn't focus my attention to meditation guides. My mind drifted away, but it didn't bring me to sleep. It drifted onto some worrisome thoughts. But I did find a solution, and the solution will probably sound bizarre to you. I could stay focused on some podcasts that provided information I was interested in. Health-related topics are the kind of content that I am ready to listen most of the time. Among my favorite shows are the Primal Podcast, Carnivore Conversations, the Dr. Gabrielle Lyons Show, the Plant-Free MD, and the Huberman Lab. I've listened through some of those shows multiple times. I fall asleep with people talking, and as I wake up, they're still talking. That's where I am in my healing stage from insomnia. But I have to tell you that I have retained a lot of information, and I remember a lot. I wear bedphones every night. They are flat and spongy, so it isn't difficult to sleep with them on one side. I always need to remember to charge them, or I might not be able to sleep. Without them, I'm like an infant who can't sleep without a pacifier. The main message of this episode, though, isn't about carnivores, nor it is about my credibility. It is that I am continuing to journal so that I keep healing. And a part of my healing journey is letting go of my fear of exclusion from the tribe. As someone who once moved across the ocean to the place where I didn't know anyone, I was focused on growing my support network, and by doing so, it was important for me to be liked. So I think that my previous version wouldn't be brave enough to come out as a carnivore in fear of having some of my vegan and vegetarian friends turn away from me. I no longer have that fear because I know that true friends will remain true friends, even though our opinions differ. And I don't need to strive to keep those who aren't my true friends. I can let them go, and I can speak my truth now as I see it, and I am willing to help others to do the same. I'll stop here, but I'll be back in a week to share more of what I've learned and my experience. You've been listening to the podcast of Ilse B. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and share it to show me your support and help me grow. If you want to learn more about me, my causes, my products, and my services, please visit my website ilzebe.com. That's ILZEBE.com. Disclaimers. In this podcast, I talk about mental and physical health and what has helped me to heal. Nothing that I say should be regarded as medical advice. If you have any medical condition, consult your doctor. Also, I'm an artist and storyteller. I'm sharing my stories because that's what artistic people do. Take it as fiction and as a form of my art. Even though I may sound as if I'm recalling events from my past, I don't confirm they actually happened. And if they did, I'm not blaming or accusing anyone, nor should you. I take all my life lessons with gratitude, trusting that they are given to me to expand my soul.